Welcome to Creature Creator, a show where I help you recreate your favorite stories and characters at your gaming tables. Our featured creature today was sent in by GlitchScrap989, who suggested we tackle none other than Pennywise, the infamous killer clown from Stephen King's classic 1986 novel, It. Considering my own love and very passionate fear of the monster, it wasn't a hard decision to answer this call and help you all create your own eldritch monsters for your games. Here on Creature Creator. Hey, hello there, I'm Flintworth, and I'm going to come right out and say it that if you ever wanted to go and make your big bad be a homage to a modern day classic horror villain, Pennywise is the best option. He is a master manipulator, shapeshifter, and unrepentant sociopath all rolled into one. Plus, he even comes with a ready-made dungeon thanks to the sewers below Derry that he calls home. So no matter if you plan to make the use of game systems like Kids on Bikes, D&D, or even Dungeoneering, you're going to have no problem getting the most out of it. Okay, yeah, no more puns. Anywho, as I was saying, you're gonna have a lot of wiggle room when it comes to working in your own Pennywise. Want to send some minions after the party? Easy. Pick a few items and boom, they're alive now. What's that? Your lair needs to suddenly have a few traps? Well, guess what? They just exist now. Better yet, you want to simply cut out the middleman and make a player get separated from the rest of the party? Done and done. It really doesn't matter if it's fair, as long as your party fears Pennywise, he can do whatever he bloody wants. But that's the catch though. Monsters like Pennywise are only as powerful as the fear their victims have in them. And despite having their considerable abilities at your disposal, you might struggle a little bit developing that same level of fear in your players. Obviously, people don't tend to all be scared of the same thing, sure. But what you need to really consider here is that even if you do manage to go and perfectly recreate their nightmares at your tables, the fact remains that not everyone is scared when things like that are put in a fictional setting. And with us looking to run our own It-inspired games here, the last thing we would want is to ruin our game's immersion by failing to recreate such a crucial element to the original tale. Fortunately, I can tell you from experience, there's a very simple trick you can employ to avoid this. Simply have your players write in a fear during character creation. It doesn't matter if it's an actual fear of theirs. Hell, I would even encourage they select something that they are not scared of in real life. What this does is it sets up your party's fear to be less of an expectation and more of a play feature. Kind of like how they already be using things like personality traits and flaws in roleplay. Some of your players may even find it fun pretending to be scared. Or is that just me? On the flip side, this will also mean that each of the players will have a decisive fear that you can go and toy with to no end. Sure, it may feel a little cheap to go with such a cheap tactic, but that's exactly how Pennywise would do it. That monster has no problem exploiting every little intricate insecurity, every little tiny flaw in his victims, and frankly, neither should you. Besides, doing so will help you build up all of the challenges and themes of your game, or more specifically, how we're going to go and reproduce it. Now, to begin with, you will need to go and settle on two very important features of your monster: what it actually looks like and what its favorite disguise is. Fortunately, the former is mostly used to serve your storytelling, so you don't really need to have an exact idea of what it really looks like, providing that you still have enough to sprinkle in ambiguous hints here and there throughout the course of your game. Naturally, there's nothing stopping you if you wish to design it fully, if your plan is to reveal it to the party later. In fact, it actually might help scare your players that much better if your monster has more devilish origins. But if you're running them more as some cosmic horror, keeping things mysterious will serve you much better. As for its favorite disguise, considering that your players will be confronting it looking like that the most, you're gonna need to have a bit more of an idea of what it actually looks like. So choose something that you'll know you have an easy time playing around with. In its case, this would be his Pennywise form, which the horror skillfully uses to both lure in and scare his unsuspecting victims. But there's nothing stopping you for choosing an appearance that's more iconic to your table, like say the mascot to the school you all went to growing up, or maybe even a cartoon character you all adored as kids. Just make sure it's something you can easily pull from to create other creepy imagery, like how Pennywise does with his balloons. As for its stats, I did put together something that you could use for 5e. However, when you consider most combat encounters with it are more of a mind game than an actual physical one, you frankly could get away with just doing a series of clever skill checks. Not that there's anything stopping you from running combat encounters. In fact, they may make for some pretty great set pieces where a character overcomes their personal fear, or even subdues a thrall of it. I just advise, if you do, to make sure you are using the proper stat block. Like say if you run a combat encounter between a player and a zombie. Regardless of whether the soulless corpse is an actual, corpse, or your shape changer disguise, you'll want to go into the monster manual and use the stat block for zombies. Not only will this help make the encounter more fair, it'll help make it more distinctive to when your players go up against your monster in its preferred disguise. This will also help play up the fact that, like it, your creature's greatest weakness is that its power is entirely dependent on your player's fear in it, meaning their abilities diminish the second any of its prey begins to believe in themselves. Hence how in our zombie example, your Pennywise may find its power diminished to that of the shambling corpse if their quarry ever goes from running away to bashing in their head. This is why the clown often goes after kids over adults. They're far easier to scare and manipulate. Plus, I can't imagine from a storytelling perspective, it would be very simple, let alone interesting, to go after common adult fears, like discussing politics or wondering if they ever will afford a home. Yeah. This does beg the question though, how should you really go after your players? Do you run a campaign, a one-shot, a two-part scenario? Frankly, all the above are viable options. I mean, technically the original book takes place over 27 years, so you have plenty of time to adjust your game to be whatever length you need it to be. Personally though, I would go for a campaign set over the course of one summer, to give my players plenty of opportunities to dive into the mysteries and history of my Pennywise, all the while put them through all kinds of exciting challenges and battles with my creature. The only thing I could see you may have a problem with is running a plot similar to the original book. Simply put, running a narrative that jumps between two very distinct timelines is a struggle in itself. You may find yourself running into a lot of unneeded headaches. So do yourself a favor, keep it simple and keep it to one timeline. And don't worry, this won't mean you'll be limiting yourself to what game systems you can use. Resources like Kids and Bikes has sections on playing as adults, and frankly, it wouldn't be that much of a stretch to apply a D&D class to a teen. Fantasy novels have been doing it for ages after all. As for those who still are determined to allow their players the chance to play their characters both as kids and as adults, you will do well to take a page from the movie's playbook by splitting your game into two parts, where you play everything out when the party are kids for a time skip to their adulthoods. That way you don't have to worry about those pesky time paradoxes and such, leaving you completely free to dwell with the biggest issue of any Pennywise-inspired villain. How do your players ultimately beat the fucker? Yeah, that's the problem about using Eldritch Horror as your big bad, is that there really isn't a common way to beat them. Hey, you could take a cue from the original book and have a large cosmic turtle come to your player's aid, or have them perform a ritual like the one in the films, although running a combat encounter could be a lot of fun. I mean, I don't know about you, but I would enjoy getting to roleplay a giant spider clown. And let's be honest, there's nothing more satisfying than a good old boss beatdown. Regardless of how things play out though, there is one very important narrative beat you'll want to try to go and have your players live through. And believe it or not, it is not the thrill of getting to go and overcome their fears. See, Stephen King's It is ultimately a tale about kids discovering adulthood. It's about them learning how the world can be a cruel and scary place, how it can and will break their hearts. But it's through dealing with those hardships that they also learn that no matter how much of an outcast or loser they may feel, they are ultimately not alone. That there are others like them, People willing to accept and love them for who they are, no matter what. All that may be a little heavy and frankly cliche, but you and your players may come to appreciate it in time, if for no other reason than the sweet satisfaction of proving to the master of fear itself that there's no bond more powerful than the one between friends. Well, next time on Creature Creator. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ready or not, the nightmare comes. Hey, just wanted to say real quick, thank you for watching today. I cannot say enough how much I've been overjoyed with the response to this series as of late. As always, keep your suggestions coming. If you haven't already, consider subscribing and maybe leaving this video a like. And if you don't, no worries, you're still beautiful. I love you anyway. Take care.